A lot of WordPress plugin code starts the same way. A hook here, a shortcode there, a settings field, a little Ajax handler, maybe a cron job. It works at first, then the plugin grows, and suddenly nobody knows where the real logic lives. This is the plugin structure I wish more WordPress developers used. Not because every plugin needs a huge framework, most do not, but because even small plugins need boundaries if they are going to survive real client work, redesigns, new features, and another developer touching the code 6 months later. The first mistake is putting durable logic in temporary places. If the logic belongs to the business, it probably should not live in the team. If it affects checkout rules, content rules, user permissions, product behavior, integrations, or reporting, it should survive a redesign. A theme can change. A plugin should carry the behavior that this business depends on. The main plugin file should stay boring. It defines constants, loads dependencies, registers activation or uninstall hooks, and starts the plugin. That is it. The entry file is not where I want admin pages, database queries, shortcode rendering, email logic, and API calls all mixed together. Once that file becomes the whole application, the plugin is already harder to change. Hooks are how WordPress calls your code. They are not the architecture by themselves. A hook callback should often be a thin layer that delegates to something clearer. For example, a save post callback should not contain every validation rule, permission check, database update, and side effect inline. Let the hook connect WordPress to your plugin. Keep the actual rules somewhere you can read and test. Admin code deserves its own boundary. Settings pages, meta boxes, admin assets, notices, and list table changes are a different concern from the plugin's actual rules. If you mix admin HTML, nonce checks, option updates, and core business behavior in one file, every change becomes risky. Keep the admin layer responsible for input, display, and WordPress admin integration. Then pass the real work to the plugin layer underneath. Front-end behavior should be separate too. Shortcodes, blocks, templates, and public assets have different failure modes than admin settings. If a shortcode breaks, the visitor sees it. If an admin setting breaks, the site owner sees it. Those paths should not be tangled together. A simple front-end folder is often enough. The point is that rendering and public behavior should have a place to live. For many plugins, a structure like this is enough. The main file boots the plugin, plugin.php wires the parts together, admin handles admin screens, frontend handles public output, domain holds the rules that are specific to the plugin, infrastructure handles WordPress options, custom tables, HTTP calls, queues, or third-party APIs. You can rename these folders. The names are less important than the boundaries. Persistence needs a home. One of the easiest ways to make a plugin painful is to scatter option names, post meta keys, transient names, and custom table queries across random files. It feels fast in the beginning, later nobody knows what data exists or what can be safely changed. Even a small wrapper around options or post meta can make the plugin easier to reason about. Activation and uninstall are part of the architecture too. What happens when the plugin is activated? Does it create options? Does it create a table? Does it schedule cron? What happens when it is removed? Do you clean up data or does the client need to keep it? These decisions should not be afterthoughts. They affect support, privacy, and whether the plugin behaves like a responsible part of the WordPress site. The trap is overcorrecting. You do not need a full enterprise pattern for a plugin with one setting and one shortcode. If the structure takes longer to understand than the feature, it is probably too much. The goal is not to impress another developer with folders. The goal is to make the next change obvious. Where does this code belong? What can it affect? How do I remove it safely? A maintainable plugin should answer a few basic questions quickly. Where does it boot? Where are hooks registered? Where are the business rules? Where does data access live? What happens on uninstall? If another developer can answer those questions without reading the entire plugin, the structure is already doing useful work. That is the plugin architecture I want more WordPress projects to use. Not huge, not fancy, just structured enough that the business logic survives the next redesign. If you want more practical WordPress, Shopify, and custom web architecture, subscribe to Stack Agnostic.